Welcome back once again to Forbes Sports Money. The story of how Jerry Jones turned around an NFL franchise that was bleeding money into the most profitable team in the NFL is an extraordinary one. But many people don't realize that this was a family affair. Jerry's daughter, Charlotte, was a key factor in this story of the Cowboys' success. And her role in the franchise, as well as the league itself, has expanded to the point where she's been dubbed the most powerful woman in the NFL. Michael Ozanian traveled to Texas in order to learn the story of Charlotte Jones Anderson in part 2 of our Sports Money Profile.
When you were at Stanford studying human biology,
yes.
Did you ever think you'd be in this position?
No, never. Actually, I went to Stanford thinking that I was going pre-med. I realized after a very tough core in human biology my sophomore year that maybe I was not cut out for a hospital, that maybe I really aspired beyond the walls of a hospital to try to make a difference someplace. Right after school, I actually thought that someplace was Washington, D.C. You know, we all make mistakes when we're trying to really go in and make a difference in the world, and I thought Washington was the best place to go. But, you know, sometimes we learn and we live and we move on. But I was in politics when my father bought the team, and interestingly enough, my younger brother was at Georgetown, and my father came up to Washington, and if you recall, our first year, the only game we won was in Washington that year. So it certainly made it a little bit better to be up there. But prior to him buying the team, he came to visit and he said, you know, here, this is what I want to do. I want to, you know, make our investment into the Dallas Cowboys. And, you know, what do you think? And, you know, I find myself fairly intelligent, and I was looking at all the financials and the numbers that he had, and quite frankly, it was a really bad decision. And all of his advisors were telling him this was not a good deal to do, that there was no way to turn it around, and it was really bust, and you shouldn't do this. But when you tell that to someone who is as passionate as my father, and who just would give his left arm to be involved in the National Football League, particularly the Dallas Cowboys, well, there was no stopping him.
At what point did you say, you know what, I'd like to be part of this?
Well, I received a phone call from my father about a year and a half into it. And as I said, I was in Washington, D.C. at the time. And he said, you know, I have a line of women outside of my office who have said that I'm trying to change the uniform to hot pants and halter tops. He said, could you tell me what hot pants are? And all I could think of is like, wow, things are not going very well down there. So I flew down to Dallas, and you know there were fires all over the place, and cheerleading was one of them. But he didn't even know where the cheerleading studio was. He had enough on his hands on the football side of things and the business side. So I went down for the weekend and kind of helped him resolve that. And then, you know, he asked me if I wanted to stay, and I said, oh, you know, I'm not sure that I'm cut out for this football thing. And he said, you know, I said I don't really know anything about professional football. And he said, well, neither do I. He said, this didn't come with a blue book on how to run this team. He said, I just need people around me that I can trust. And with that, I went back to Washington and really thought about it. And I thought, you know, opportunities don't always present themselves wrapped up in a nice, pretty package. Sometimes you got to take a leap of faith and see what the door opens. And I went down to Dallas and then really never looked back. I got into my office, and you know, he walks by my office. I said, okay, well, I'm here, you know, what do you want me to do? And that's when he said, well, just find a way to stop losing money. And he turns and he walks off. And that was like the last I talked to him for months, you know, and then just dove into the business and circled the biggest red number I could find on the ledger, and that happened to be training camp. And I jumped right into that, moved our training camp from California to Texas, back to Austin at St. Ed's. And then we began what is now sports marketing in terms of barter agreements. And, you know, it's like, what do you do when you get involved in the middle of camp? You still are looking at numbers, and you realize it costs you this amount to do laundry, this amount to do each item. And then with that, it's like went to the dry cleaners and said, you know, would you do our dry cleaning if we put a sign up out at practice? You know, we're going to have all these people out there, and maybe you can hand out some coupons. And it started like that. So it was one barter after the next, and slowly we started erasing the red and changing it over, and that kind of beget what is now today's contemporary marketing.
What's the greatest lesson your father taught you?
That's kind of I don't want to say it's an easy answer, but for us it's one that I repeat frequently, is that you have to have a high tolerance for ambiguity. And I think for me that pretty much defines my career, is that I had no idea what I was getting into when we came here, nor say my father. I will say that he knew that he wanted to be involved in the NFL, but he didn't see what was in the future. He wasn't sure how he was going to turn the team around or make it work to be able to stay involved in the team. So being able to be uncertain about your future, but to perform at a high level. And I think that's what motivates us every day, is that I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years. When we first started building the stadium, I didn't know it was going to be this, and I don't think any of us did. But as we got into it, all of a sudden we realized, wow, we've really got a hold of something, and it can be special. Well, I think that's it. You have to appreciate the fact that ambiguity is what makes a lot of us, fear the future, but also thrive in it.